ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ओम्। Revered Swami Yogatmanji Maharaj, dear friends, good morning, and I'm happy to be here with you this beautiful morning in Providence, Rhode Island. Yesterday, Swami kindly arranged for a trip for me. We went to Annisquam, a village close by, where Swami Vivekananda, more than 100 years ago, he delivered his first public talk in the United States there. People know about his famous talk at the Chicago Parliament of Religions, but this was before that, a few days before that. And that was in the village church in Annisquam. And one thing which strikes you if you come from California is that it's so green here. It's beautiful, it's green, and it's really a sight for sore eyes. When the Swami asked me to plan a retreat, I selected this subject because this Upanishad is Swami Vivekananda's favorite Upanishad, the Katha Upanishad. And he would often quote from it. Many times in Swami Vivekananda's lectures, you come across a lucid talk, little do we realize that he's actually freely translating and adapting from the original Vedic Sanskrit of the Upanishads. Among all the Upanishads, probably Katha Upanishad was his favorite. So that's one reason. And this is a storehouse of wisdom. So we cannot hope to go through all of that in one day retreat, though Swamiji has kindly increased the time. We have got one extra class today in the afternoon. Even then, it would take weeks to complete this text. It's a treasury of spiritual wisdom. Now, what I have done is I've selected a few of verses, a few mantras from this Upanishad, which we shall discuss in depth. I see that many of you are taking notes, so I will tell you the takeaway from each of the three talks that we shall have today, and then there'll be question answers. So you can take down notes, and also I'll tell you at the end. There'll be some time for interaction at the end of each talk, and then we shall go on to the next talk. And finally, there'll be a question-answer session at the end of the day, where we can discuss things more threadbare. You can ask questions. You can write down questions from each of the three talks. If you don't get a chance to ask them at the end of each talk, you can still ask them at the question-answer session. Now, the way I have planned it is, this is an introductory and preparatory talk, but that doesn't mean it's not important. I would say it's the most important because it lays the foundation for what is going to follow. This talk will be more in the psychological, ethical domain, the preparations for spiritual life. And then in the second and third talks, we shall move into the more spiritual, metaphysical domains. Now, we are all sitting here in the Vedanta Society, and we know, most of us, we've been coming here for quite some time, so we know Vedanta. The word Vedanta It means Upanishads. In fact, the definition of Vedanta, when we study what Vedanta is, one of the definitions we come across is, in Sanskrit, Vedanta Nama Upanishad Pramanam. Vedanta is nothing but the source of spiritual knowledge called the Upanishads. What is Vedanta? Vedanta is the source of spiritual knowledge called the Upanishads. Collectively taken, the Upanishads are Vedanta. There's no difference. That's a central text of Vedanta. The Vedas are the core religious texts of the Hindus. They are also the most ancient religious literature available to humanity. And in the Vedas, towards the end of the Vedas sometimes, or sometimes in the middle, you find these texts called Upanishads. These Upanishads are part of the Vedas, and you find them sometimes towards the end, sometimes in the middle. Since they are sometimes found towards the end, one reason why they are called Vedanta, Vedanta literally means Veda Anta, the end of the Vedas. So that's one reason, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is that it is the culmination, the highest teaching, the final teaching, the final conclusion. Anta means Nirnaya also in Sanskrit. Final conclusion that the Vedas come to about human life. The highest spiritual knowledge, the highest philosophy that you can find in the Vedas is in the Upanishads. So in that sense, Upanishads are the end of the Vedas, the culmination, the last word of the Vedas. Hence, Vedanta, the end of the Vedas. And these Upanishads are many in number. But all of them come to one and the same conclusion. What is that conclusion? That we, all of us, we are essentially divine. God and man, the human and the divine, are one and the same reality at its essence. Not as we know ourselves. As we know ourselves, we are not very godlike. Far from it. And if I say, you're God, Upanishads say, Tat Tvamasi, that thou art, you are God. And now we are likely to get, who, me? You're talking about somebody else? Not me. I don't feel particularly godlike. But not as we know ourselves, as we really are. And how do we know ourselves as we really are? That is what the Upanishad teaches us. To find out this divinity within ourselves. Swami Vivekananda said, the essence of religion is that each soul is potentially divine. And the goal of life is to realize this, to manifest this divinity within. And there are different ways of doing it. And he says this is a religion. He says this is the core of religion. All religions in different language, different mythology, different philosophies, they try to come to this truth. Nowhere have I found it put forward so plainly, so directly, and so gloriously as the most ancient of these religious texts, the Upanishads. Now these Upanishads are many in number. We find a list of at least 108 authentic Upanishads in one of the Upanishads themselves, the Muktika Upanishad. But there are other lists. It seems there are more than 1,000 of these Upanishads. Many are lost. Some are of dubious authenticity, may have been composed at later times and introduced. But non-controversially, we take what were called 10 major Upanishads. Why major? Major only in the sense that about 1400 years ago, one of the greatest philosophers who ever lived in the East or the West, Adi Shankaracharya, who was in the south of India, in Kerala, though he traveled all over India. Adi Shankaracharya, 1400 years ago in India, he selected 10 of these Upanishads. By the time of Shankaracharya, the Upanishads themselves were already very ancient. When Shankaracharya himself came along, the Upanishads were maybe at least 3,000 years old, 30 centuries old. And he selected 10 of these. Dating in civilizations in India is always a problem. Even conservatively, if you date what is now called the Harappan or Saraswati Valley civilization, It goes back, when we were school children, it went back to, at least conservatively, without controversy, it went back to 4,000 years or more. And now they've pushed it back to more than 8,000 years. Just recent evidence shows that it's more than 8,000 years old. So it's pretty old. I remember first time I visited the United States in January last year. They were showing me around. They said, this place is really old. This San Francisco is an old city, and we have old buildings which are some of them are more than 100 years old. I said, oh, really? In Bengal, where our main monastery is and where I come from, the oldest buildings are not very old by Indian standards. I remember we were taking a group of young monks, novices, on a tour of religious places. There's a place called Vishnupur in Bengal. And the oldest Bengal Vaishnava temples are there, which date back to 500 to 600 years. And they were saying proudly this is 600 years old, which is old. But I would see the monks who have come from the south of India, they're standing and smiling slightly. Because there, unless it's at least 1,000 years old, no temple or structure is considered to be very old or very particularly distinguished. So it's relative. But the Vedas are old by any standard. And of these non-controversially old Upanishads, standard Upanishads which Shankaracharya selected for writing commentaries, 10 of these, in the Himalayas, where these are the standard texts, the monks have a little verse to memorize the names of the 10 Upanishads. So they will recite it. It goes like this. Isha kena katha prashna mundamandukya titiri aitareyam cha chandogyam brihad aranyakam tatha. So these are the 10 Upanishads. Isha, Kena, Katha, the one which I have selected, Prashna, Mundaka Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Aitareya Upanishad, and Chandogya Upanishad and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The last two are really big, but the others are smaller ones. And Katha Upanishad is also fairly small. It has 2 chapters, each with 3 sections. But it's still too big to do in one day. So what I have done is, I have selected some of the best mantras from that. And we shall delve deep into it. So all of these Upanishads, without exception, they say that we are one with God. We are one with God. God, the term is not used in the Upanishads, the term is Brahman. And Brahman literally means vast, the infinite. And we, if we would only know ourselves, Swami Vivekananda would sometimes say in this country, with a look of sorrow sometimes on his face, he would look at people and say, if only you knew yourself as you truly are. If only you knew yourself as you truly are. Meaning thereby, if we would really know the truth about ourselves, all our problems would be solved. You see, what is the purpose of all of this? The purpose of all of this exercise in the Upanishads is the very highest possible goal in human life. That is overcoming suffering and attainment of bliss. Overcoming suffering and attainment of bliss. That we'll go into slowly later on. Now this Upanishad, some of the Upanishads, they have stories. Many of these Upanishads are in the form of dialogues between the teacher and the taught. And this Upanishad is no exception. And this has a particularly cute story, this Upanishad. And you can see the story there on the screen. You see, it begins with a typical Vedic landscape where Vajasravasa, who is a very pious man, he is performing a Vedic sacrifice. Now in those days, 30 centuries ago, religion meant fire sacrifices. Today, if you go to Hinduism, it's very different. Hinduism evolves organically. So, Hinduism today is temples. Nowadays, there are a lot of Hindu temples in the United States. So, if you go, you will see deities and worship with rituals and so on. But you will always see a sacred flame burning. A little lamp always will be there for pujas. Now, that lamp takes us back to the days of the beginning of Hinduism. If you can speak about the beginning of an eternal religion, Sanatana Dharma. But in ancient days, there were these huge fire sacrifices. There were no big temples or images. None of it was there. It started with fire sacrifices, where a fire would be lit and offerings would be given to the gods. The fire was like a messenger which took your offerings to the various deities. Now, one of the fire sacrifices entailed that the performer would have to give away gifts. And not just any gift or any set of gifts, but everything. Everything. You give everything away. And why would you want to do that? The idea is to gain merit. Punyam, the Sanskrit word is punyam. The idea is to gain merit. Why would you want to gain merit? It's like, think of it like credit in your bank. So there's this cosmic bank where all the accounts are maintained for all of us. Our karma balance. Swami Vivekananda puts it very beautifully. Good, good, bad, bad, and none escape the law. What is the law? If you do good things, the results will be good. The results are called the merit. You earn a lot of merit by that, punyam, by doing dharma, which is good. And by doing that which we know to be bad, consciously, knowingly, if we do something that we know to be bad, then that's called adharma, immoral. And we get a demerit. And you run up debts, karmic debts. And the result is bad. What is a good result? Very simple. Sukham, happiness. What's a bad result? Dukkham, suffering. And so they say, whatever we are experiencing in our lives, throughout our lives, whatever we are experiencing, is the results of our past karmas coming to us. Now, this is how the Indians understand good and evil. It's not God punishing us or God rewarding us for what we have done. Rather, it's us. What we are today is what we have labored for since ancient times. We have constructed, we have built up this life which we have got today. But it's also a message of hope. It's not fatalism, though it has often been interpreted as fatalistic. It's a message of hope that what we shall do today will determine our lives, our future. And it's very interesting to note that this law of karma, good, good, bad, bad, this law of karma is accepted not only by all Hindus, but by all Buddhists, by all Jains and all Sikhs, in fact all Indic religions, those which had their origins in India, all of them accept this law of karma, though they are very different among each other. The Buddhists won't accept an eternal God or eternal soul, but they all accept the law of karma, and they all accept this whole idea of many lives, this whole idea of many lives, that we have had other lives earlier and we are likely to have other existences after death. This idea, if you just exercise our minds a little logically, philosophically, we shall see it comes directly from the law of karma. If what we do will give rise to results, then all the results we will not experience in this lifetime, hence we need more lifetimes. And what we do, what we are getting now, what we are experiencing now is the result of past causes. Our little life is not enough to explain what we have got right now. So there must have been past lives. So many lives is a consequence of the law of karma. Today, how to be happy is an important question, and nowhere more so than in the United States. The pursuit of happiness is part of the creed of the United States. It's one of the wonderful ideas on which this nation was founded, one of the great ideas, freedom and the pursuit of happiness, your own dreams, You are free to pursue happiness in your own way. And so if you go to any bookshop, the self-help sections are always full of new titles. And one of the themes will be happiness. How do we become happy? And there are all sorts of books. But the Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, Sikhs, the ancient Indians had a very simple answer for this, the law of karma. If you want nice things to happen to you, if you want to have a pleasant life, then do good things. Do good. Think good thoughts, say good things, and do good things. If you're going to think bad thoughts and say bad things and do things which you know to be wrong, then the result will be unhappiness. So this, but it won't fill a shelf of books in the self-help section. So if you have a lot of good karma, you have a pleasant life. And one more thing, let me just add here, because it's relevant. In the Uttarakhand, in the Himalayas, in India, the monks believe one more thing, that if you have really a lot of good karma, pleasant life, lots and lots of good karma, and I'm not making this up when I tell you what they say. If you have lots and lots of good karma, you come to Vedanta. They actually say this, yes. It doesn't have to be sectarian. You come to spiritual life. You have spiritual questions. You have spiritual seeking. You're no longer satisfied with just a pleasant life, with the life which we are having. Seek for meaning. Seek for the purpose of life. Seek for the goal of life. And that's what Vedanta is all about. Vedanta, you can see it as the central philosophy of religion. I'm saying not just central philosophy of Hinduism. To my way of understanding, and to the way of understanding we have in the Ramakrishna order, Vedanta society, it's the central philosophy of any religion. The core idea. Without this, it doesn't make sense. So, the Upanishads begin with this story in Katha Upanishad. In the Katha Upanishad, which forms part of the Yajur Veda, one of the Vedas, the story begins with Nachiketa, a little boy, his father performing one of these big fire sacrifices to earn merit, so that he'll have a pleasant life in this life, and after death he hopes to go to heaven. That used to be the goal of many Indians in those days. You go to heaven after death. Nowadays the goal is mostly you come to USA. So not in the next life, in this life itself. You earn enough merit to come to the United States. But the goal was to go to heaven, and Nachiketa's father, little boy's father, thought no differently. It's not a particularly spiritual goal. Have a pleasant life in this life, and after death, you go for a much more pleasant life in heaven. And so he performed this sacrifice, and he was giving away gifts. And the little boy, Nachiketa, he saw something strange, funny happening. As little children often are, they're very direct. He sees that his father, who's supposed to give away all his wealth, and wealth in those times meant cattle, cows, because it was a very agrarian society. And the more cattle you had, the more wealthy you had. Not very different from this country, what it was 100 years ago. So we all grew up reading stories of cowboys in USA. So that was wealth. And you can understand why it would be so. And Nachiketa's father is supposed to give away that wealth. And Nachiketa sees his father is keeping the good cows aside. And the cows which are not giving any milk, will not give any more calves, and are sick or something. Otherwise, he's donating all of that to the gifts, to the visitors who have come for the big ritual. And Nachiketa, the Upanishad says, Shraddha avivesha, that faith entered into him. A sense of right and wrong, good and bad, enters into this little boy. And he sees this is not right. Now, he can't directly speak out and tell his dad that you are cheating. But he goes about it in an intelligent way, and he says to his dad, Kasmai mam dasyasi iti. So once in a while I'll use the original Sanskrit. It gives a flavor of the ancient language. To whom will you give me, Dad? Because I belong to you too. I'm your son. So you give everything, you're giving everything away, so you're supposed to give me away too. Though originally in the sacrifice you're not supposed to give your own son away, but he is making a point here. To whom will you give me? The first time his dad ignores him, thinks that the boy is being fresh. Second time his dad ignores him. Third time when he asks this, his father loses his temper and he says, Mrityave tva dadamiti. I give thee to death. I give thee to death. It's sort of the Sanskrit version of go to the other place. His dad is furious. And the little boy takes it seriously. He says, why would you want to do that? I'm not a bad boy. And he says, and you can see how little kid he is. He says, I'm not really bad. My grades are pretty good. Actually, he says this. I'm first in many things, top of my class in many things. I'm about halfway between in many other things. And nowhere I'm at the bottom, which means my grades are really good. Why would you want to give me away to death? But what could he do? His father's words have been spoken, so the little boy has to go to the house of death. And the little boy, because it's a story, so the little boy goes to the house of death, forthwith. Now death is out. He's a busy man. He's on tour. He has a lot of clients he goes calling on. They don't like him. They don't want him to come. But he's going there. And he's on his rounds, And nobody says that, you're not expected, it's too early, I don't want to die. You should give advance notice. And death usually says, I gave you advance notice. The first gray hairs, advance notice. Your teeth falling out, advance notice. This problem and that problem coming, advance notice. I gave lots of advance notice and now I'm here. And he's someone who doesn't take no for an answer. Now he comes back after 3 days. 3 days he comes back and the little boy refused all offers of food and drink. He sits there waiting for death to come. And death's secretary or somebody, and I'm not making it up, it's all there in the Upanishad. It doesn't say secretary, but somebody tells death, the lord of death, Yama. That's the guy there. He's a pretty tough looking guy. He rides on a bull and carries a huge mace. They tell him that there's a little boy who has come and who's been waiting for you for 3 days and he hasn't eaten. And it's not good for a person if a guest comes to your house and you don't take care of him. So death goes to the little boy and says, so little boy, you haven't eaten for 3 days. I'll give you 3 boons to make up for your suffering. You can ask me for any 3 things. And Nachiketa asks one by one. And you can see, after all, he's a little boy. The first thing he asks is, when I go back to my dad's house, let my dad not be mad at me anymore. He's feeling pretty bad and lonely. He's alone. Recently, you must have seen in the paper, there's a very heartbreaking story of the Japanese couple. The little boy was misbehaving, so they left him in a forest with bears in the forest. And the boy was lost for 7 days, but they found him finally. And the father was just disciplining him. He said, we don't want you, get out. And the boy the boy feels bad. My dad is mad at me. But you see how intelligent he is. He doesn't waste a boon. He could have said, I've come to death, but I don't want to die, I want to go back. So that's the first boon, let me go back to the living. The second boon is my father won't be mad at me. But he combines them and he says, when I go back. So it's like the person who says, when God appears before him and asks and says, I'll give you a boon, he says, I want to eat with my grandchild on silver and gold cutlery with dishes and all. Which means he's going to live long enough to see his grandchildren. And he's going to have grandchildren. He's going to be rich enough to have gold and silver, silverware and dishes and all. So in one boon. And Nachiketa does that. when I go back, not if, when I go back to my dad shouldn't be mad at me anymore. And Yama says, yes, given. And Nachiketa, he's a child of his times. So he knows what religion is of those days, the big fire sacrifices, and he knows all the grown-ups want to go to heaven. So the second boon he asks for, which is the highest heaven, and they have got different heavens. In Hinduism, we have got 7 worlds, one above, one each more subtle than the other, and each better than the other. Don't be tempted. They are all very tempting, but we are not going down that road now. But Nachiketa says, what's the way to go to the highest heaven? Teach me the best of these fire sacrifices. And Yama does that. Yama teaches him the best fire sacrifice that there is. And he says, okay, time for your third boon. Ask for your third boon. I'm reminded of that was some 16 years ago, when I was a new monk, a brahmachari, we call it a novice, in the place where I joined, Ramakrishna Mission Vidyapit, Deoghar. It's a school for little kids, like Nachiketa. And a very senior Swami Atmasthanandaji, he was visiting. He was the general secretary of our order at that time. He was visiting that particular center. And we had put together a little play, Yama and Nachiketa, for him. And all the teachers would attend, and all the parents would come for the play, and the school kids would put on that play. And they rehearsed and rehearsed, and it was a disaster. So, a little boy was Nachiketa, and a rather hefty kid was Yama. And they forgot their lines, and one of the Swamis had said, the most important parts, let the students stand there, and from the back, I will chant in Sanskrit. The original should be chanted in Sanskrit, the most important parts. The rest of it was in Hindi. And when the time came for him to chant, we looked around, and he had gone for a restroom break at that time. And the kids were standing and looking back at us, and we felt so bad we couldn't do it. We were shrugging from there. And the audience was booing, and they were falling over each other laughing. They found it cute, but the kids were sweating it out. And finally, when time came for the third boon, and Yama asks the kid, ask for your third boon, what do you want? And from the audience, somebody said, tell him I don't want anything, it'll bring this play to a close. At least we'll be saved of our further suffering. But Nachiketa asks a question. He asks a question that some people say that there is nothing after death, this is the end. Some people say that there is something after death, something survives death. What is the nature of that which survives death? So he's asking a question about the reality of ourselves. He's asking, who am I? Who are we? What are we? Are we creatures of flesh and blood, material creatures? We have material bodies, there's no doubt about it. And these bodies will come to an end. If that's all we are, then that's it. Or is there something more to it? Is there some reality of the human being in depth, not just a physical body? Something beyond that, something survives death. And if so, what is that which survives death? Is it something changing like the mind? Is it something beyond the mind? So he's asking a very deep question. He's asking the fundamental question of spiritual life. What are we, or who are we? That's the question he's asking. And he's asking it to death. Now here is something profound. Very recently, I read this book, very interesting book called The Denial of Death by Professor Ernest Becker. It was a Pulitzer Prize winner, I think, in 1974. It's a book based on psychoanalysis, but a profound book nevertheless. Now don't go out and order it on Amazon. It's a profoundly depressing book also. But very, very, very deep. And the one fundamental fact of our life is death. Spiritual life, you will find some people believing in religion, some people believing in different religions, some people not believing in religions, some people are atheists, some are agnostics, different kinds of beliefs or no belief at all. But one thing is certain for all of us, and that is death. There is no doubt about it. Swami Vivekananda puts it so powerfully. Kings die and beggars die. Saints die and sinners die. The most learned of people and the most ignorant of persons also dies. All of them die. Death is certain. It's the one certainty of our life. It's this truth which made a prince into the Buddha. Prince Siddhartha, when he saw Gautama in the north of India 2,500 years ago, he saw the fact of old age, sickness, and death finally. And he said, what is the way out from this? Is there a way out of this? That's a fundamental question in spiritual life, facing up to death. And this professor says, one of the characteristics of our lives is we deny death. Deny death, nobody actually logically denies death, but we live and behave and think as if we are not going to die. We see people dying every day, and yet we live as if we are never going to die. In the Mahabharata, there's this, the prince Yudhishthira was asked a question by a celestial being. What is the great, strangest thing about life? The most amazing thing? And he says, ahani ahani bhutani. He says, every day, people are passing out before our lives. Our grandparents have gone, our parents are going, and soon it is time for us to vacate this stage of life. Even tragically, young people die too. And yet, we behave as if nothing has happened. We mourn and we go on. And we do exactly the same things everybody is doing. And we go on like this. The professor calls it a fundamental fact of our life, denial of death. Now, he goes deeper and he says, death actually cannot be denied. We are ignoring it, but if you ignore it, it won't go away. It expresses itself in different ways in our life. Think about it. He says, we are haunted by death in disguise in our life. Think about it. If we miss one meal, just food, lunch, by some accident, by some problem, how anxious we become. Just no harm if you miss a meal, but we become anxious. If we get a little pain or a little fever or a little cough, we become so anxious about it. You see why? The reason is we become overly anxious about it. The reason is, this professor says, is that it shows that at any time this thing, what we call our life, can fall apart. That's the anxiety which haunts us at the back of our minds, that this life can fall apart. And this is what haunts us. And to cover up this, he says, he calls it immortality projects. We have immortality projects. Immortality projects, it could be in politics, it could be in business, it could be in art or science, or he says even the ordinary man on the street struggling to make do with his family life and bring up a family and earn money, get property, all of these, whatever we call the business of life, these are the immortality projects he speaks about. And he says, and yet all of these are doomed to failure, because one day we're going to die and leave all of these behind. So it's very interesting that this little boy goes to death and asks what lies beyond. He says, tell me what lies beyond. You are the best teacher in this case. And death says, don't ask me that question. He says, ask me anything else. Ask me for any other boon, but don't ask me that question. And he tempts, temptation with a capital T. He tempts this child. He says, you want wealth? I will make you the richest man on earth. You want land? I'll make you the greatest king on earth. And you want heavenly pleasures, which he says, Nahidrishalambhaniya manushye, such pleasures which are not available to ordinary run of mankind. I shall give you those things also in this life. But don't ask me about what lies beyond death. And Nachiketa, he's testing Nachiketa, of course. And Nachiketa's reaction is important. That should be our reaction if we want to walk on the spiritual path. His reaction is, as long as you are there, O death, none of this matters. Because it will all come to an end. It will all come to an end. The best of lives and the worst of lives will come to an end very soon. Even if you give me the longest life, the richest life, most fulfilling life, it still come to an end. At the moment when it comes to an end, all of it will be as nothing, because it's all gone. It's all gone. Nothing is eternal in what you are offering. Nothing is permanent in what you are offering. And all the pleasures you speak about, they tire down, they wear down the human system. Sarvendriyani jarayanti teja. In Sanskrit he says, all our systems are worn down by trying to enjoy the world. How much can a person eat? We speak about the billionaires. How much of that can they spend? They're working tremendously hard for the next billion. When they're taken away by Yama, Yama pays them a visit and then gone. How much of those billions could they spend? I met this very interesting person. In Hollywood you meet interesting people. So, strange people. And a lot of homeless people. I met a very strange homeless man. This person, at a particular place, we were standing and talking, and this person came up and he was listening to me talk about Vedanta. And he was asking the most intelligent questions. And when people asked him, "Who are you?" This is a gathering of professors from Caltech. So they thought he was a philosophy professor. And he said, he had a French accent. "I'm a tourist. I'm homeless." We thought maybe it's true because there are so many homeless people around. And he looked very ordinary too. And then later on when we got talking, I got his number. He wanted my number and name, so I gave it to him and I asked for his name and asked him, "What do you do?" And he said, "Google me." And I Googled him, and it's true, he's homeless. If you Google homeless billionaire, if you Google, it is actually famous on the net. If you just Google it, immediately it'll come up. He's this guy, he has sold off all his homes, so he has no home. He lives on his private jet. So he's a homeless billionaire. But how much can you spend of that? How much can you spend it on yourself? So Nachiketa says at the end, "Tavaiva vaha tava nritya gite." You keep your song and dance and your chariots and all these things, heavenly pleasures, all of that. And he says, "Take these and don't ask me." And Nachiketa replies just like a little kid. He says, "You keep all that. You can enjoy it. I want the answer to my question." And Yama is happy. He says, "How I wish all spiritual inquirers were like you." This is exactly what a spiritual inquirer should be like. Now, he starts his teaching. I'm going to select a few verses, as I said, and the first one, he talks about a very important thing, simple idea. And he says the most important point, the beginning point of his talk is the power of choice. If you're going to take something away from this talk, the first talk is this power of choice. He says, "Anyat shreya anyad uteiva preya, te ubhe nanarthe purusham sinita, tayo shreya adadanasya sadhu bhavati, hiyate arthad yau preyo vrinute." He says, at every moment in our lives, two things come to us: the pleasant and the good. The pleasant, nice, and that which is good for us. Unfortunately, they are not the same all the time. Two things come to us at every moment in our lives: the pleasant and the good. Now the person, if you choose one, it will take you to one goal. If you choose the other, it will take you elsewhere. So there are two of them, and they take you to two very different locations, two very different ends. The one who chooses the good will reach his goal. The Upanishad just says his goal. It means a spiritual goal, but it could be any goal in human life. The one who chooses that which is good. The one who takes the easy way out, the pleasant way out, falls away from the goal. You might say it's very simple, but it's very important. It's the power of choice. It's one of the greatest powers that we have. Every moment we have the power of choosing. Choosing what? We have the power to choose what we will do, what we will do the next moment. You say, Swami, I can't control myself. What I'll do, I plan to do many things. I have to-do lists. I have resolutions, New Year's resolutions. They last for 2 or 3 days at the most. The mistake we are making is, and follow this carefully, the mistake we are making is we make a resolution, now we shall do it for next 1 year. Not that way. You do it for the next 1 hour, half an hour, 1 minute, and then take another decision. To do it for the next half an hour, next 1 hour, take another decision. Who told you that you cannot take a fresh resolution, fresh decision every minute? You can. Every minute is a new minute. Every second is a new second. And every minute offers us, the Upanishad says, the two come to us together. And you have to choose one or the other. How do I know which is good for me? We all know. In one of the Socratic dialogues, Phaedrus, I think, Socrates says to the student, he says, my dear boy, do I have to tell you what is right and what is wrong? We all know it in our hearts. At least what's good for me. We have a generally good idea. So what is right and what is wrong, what is good for me and what is just nice, it comes to us all the time. You take a decision every moment, moment to moment. And if we take consistent decisions, you will see miraculously our New Year's resolutions and all our goals in life, they are all fulfilled just like that. So what decisions do we take? What to do, number one. More important, what to say and what not to say. Even more important, what to think and what not to think. Oh, I can't control my thoughts, Swami. Wait, the same principle applies. We cannot control our thoughts for 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour. But we can control it for 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds. The next moment, yes, 1 moment I can control it. Take a decision the next moment again. Fail, forget to take a decision. Doesn't matter. Take one immediately the moment you remember. Consistently taking decisions, the Lord of Death says, you choose the truth. Choose that which is good for you, the Shreya, and it will lead to you to your goal. Peter Drucker, management guru, who strode like a giant in post-Second World War, the field of management in the United States and the whole world. He says we live in an age of choice. He points out something interesting. Your grandparents, our grandparents, did not have choice. For thousands of years, the vast majority of humanity in different civilizations did not have choice. What we shall eat, what profession we shall follow, what your parents have done, grandparents have done, the vast majority of humanity did that. Where we shall believe, most people throughout the history of humanity were born and lived and died in the same place. Very few people got the chance to migrate. What shall we eat? What your parents and grandparents up to the last 100 generations have eaten, mostly that. What shall we wear? What shall we study? All of that was more or less predetermined. Humanity did not have much scope, much degrees of freedom earlier, except a very few extremely powerful people maybe at the top. The vast majority did not have it. And Peter Drucker says it has changed in the last 50 years. Imagine, many of us here were born oceans and continents away. Many of us here, most of us I would suspect, we do things which our parents or grandparents did not think of doing also. We eat food which they did not ever think of eating. We wear clothes, we think thoughts, we watch TV shows, everything. You have an enormous choice. One of the things which strikes an immigrant to this country is the supermarket. And you go in there and you see entire shelves of cereals or chocolates or something like that. Choice. People may criticize it, but it's a fact. It's a fact that we have choice for the first time in mundane things and in deep and important things. And that choice gives us a heavy burden of responsibility also. How so? One more fact. He points out that especially women have more choice today than they ever had. Their grandmothers had. Even the mothers had. Women have much more degrees of freedom and choice today, thanks to the feminist movement, the rights movements in the last 100 years or so. They were bound completely by social fetters for thousands of years. So this choice puts us at, we have to choose now. It gives us tremendous responsibility. Drucker says young people have to make certain choices by the time they are in the late teens or early 20s, which will determine what will happen to them, everything, where they will be, whom they will marry or not marry, what job they will do, how much they will earn, what kind of life, the purpose of their life, everything will be more or less impacted upon by the choices they make in the early 20s. So it's a very big responsibility. Earlier, yes.
Swamiji, namaskar. My name is Vivek.
Yeah.
I just have a question about.
Yes.
You said that we have a choice at every moment even about what we think.
Yes.
And what not to think about, what is good for us.
Yes.
But does that hold true in all cases, even about, let's say, grief about a loved one was departed?
True.
So, for example, the Buddha, I've read that even after reaching enlightenment, when he heard that his kingdom was destroyed, he still grieved.
True. All right, I'll come to that. It's a good question. This matter of choice, we'll explore that for a little while, with the time remaining to us. There was an experiment conducted in Stanford University in the 60s and 70s. Walter Mischel, well-known psychologist, he conducted this experiment with little children, 4-year-old, 5-year-olds. And it's called the marshmallow test. It was, some of you have seen that. It was repeated. He's now in Columbia University in New York, Walter Mischel. But it was repeated again by his colleague, Philip Zimbardo, who is a very famous psychologist. His books, Psychology and Life, are in fact textbooks in university courses. So Zimbardo's experiment, which was much more recent, has been recorded actually. And you can see these videos on YouTube if you Google Zimbardo and marshmallow test. Basically, the idea was the importance of choice, of willpower. What he did was, little children would be called into a room and the psychologist would offer them a marshmallow and say, "Do you like marshmallows?" And child says, "Yes." By the way, I didn't know what a marshmallow was until I came here to the United States. I'd read about it, but it's not a common sweet in India. So the child says yes. And sometimes one particularly smart kid said, "No, I don't like it." But the psychologist was smarter than him. So he said, "Okay, do you like chocolate?" He had chocolates in his pocket too. And child said yes. Now, here is a marshmallow. If you want, you can eat it now. I'm going out for some work. But if you want two, do you want two? And it's important. Every child said, "Yes, I want two." In that case, what you do is just wait a little. Let me come back. I'll be back shortly. And then you don't eat it now. If you have not eaten it when I've come back, I'll give you one more. You'll have two. But in the meantime, if you eat it, you will have just the one. You won't get the second one. Now, this is important. Every child said, "I want two." Every child said, "I will wait." But not every child waited. And the videos are very cute. You can see the little children sitting there and looking at the door. 5 or 10 minutes is a long time for a 4-year-old. Why 4-year-old? Because before that, no child waits. Almost no children wait. They don't understand it. After 4-year-old, again, the results are more skewed. But 4-year-old, 5-year-old is a good age to test this. The child looks at that, waits. Some children waited. Some children just waited, looked at the marshmallow, and they couldn't resist anymore and ate it. So they got only one marshmallow. But what Walter Mischel did was, without telling the children, he made 2 different lists. Those who waited, and those who did not wait. And 14 years later, he went back to those subjects. They had grown up. They were 18-year-old, 19-year-old now. And he went back to them and he interviewed them, looked at their school records, interviewed their parents and friends and teachers, and he found major differences. On the average, individuals not, on the average, the children who waited performed much better at school, at music, at sports. They were much better regarded as responsible by their parents and teachers and classmates. The students who did not wait, on the average again, not individuals, on the average, performed poorly at studies. You can understand why. This impulsiveness, I decide to do one thing, but I don't stick to it. I immediately do the next pleasant thing that comes along. You see, what is good, I wait, I'll get 2. 2 is better than 1. What is pleasant? The one just now. Just now. Waiting is a sacrifice. The ability to project into the future that I will get something more in the future if I sacrifice now. That same psychology works out to, I'll do my homework later, let me go and watch the game. And stay up late at night and do my homework. Well, late at night I feel sleepy, I'll get up tomorrow and do my homework. And that tomorrow never comes. And there's other kid who says, okay, I'll give up this game, I'll watch the next game, let me finish my work now. So it becomes a habit. That responsibility, the ability to do that impulse control. Walter Mischel gave it a name, postponing gratification. The ability to postpone gratification. He says that is the key to success in life, not IQ. Later on, Daniel Goleman developed it into EQ, emotional intelligence. And one of the components, not all, but one of the components of this was the ability to postpone gratification. To forego that extra cookie if you are on a diet. To stick to a tough regime of work and exercise and family responsibilities day after day, month after month, year after year. That takes that kind of ability to stick to it, to keep your eyes on the road, not to get distracted. And one teacher put this very beautifully. He says we tend to get distracted by what's present right now in front of us. That's what advertisements try to do, what shops try to do. One psychologist was saying how they design a shop. So the best-selling items you enter into the right. Why to the right? Because most people when they enter a supermarket, they have studied it. They take a right turn. So the ones they want to sell are put right there in the right turn. Things like that. They study human nature so carefully. So this ability to hold on to what we want to do. The teacher put it so nicely. He says that when you are driving and there's rain and you switch on the windshield wiper, so the thing goes like this. And if you get distracted by it, if you start doing, you're in trouble. You'll terrify the passengers. What are you doing? You keep your eyes on the road. No. So this teacher put it very, very interestingly. He says, don't get distracted by this. That's its job. It'll keep doing that. You have to keep your eyes on the road in spite of that. Similarly, the good and the pleasant. The pleasant will keep appearing in front of you. You take your eyes off that and keep it on the good. Not just little children. It extends all the way up to corporate CEOs. Some of the causes of the present economic depression in the United States and all over the world is corporate greed. They couldn't wait to get the results that were due to them. They wanted to have the marshmallow right now. The marshmallow of the higher returns, the right away. And that's what led to the collapse of the system. At the heart, it's the same greed, which he could not resist. Thousands of years ago in the Mahabharata, Krishna teaches Gita to Arjuna, to the warrior princess. So that is the Bhagavad Gita, the dialogue between man and God. Now somebody said he should have taught it to Duryodhana, the evil prince. If he had given spiritual wisdom to the bad guy, then the war wouldn't have happened. To Duryodhana. Why did he teach the good guy? Well, Krishna did try to teach Duryodhana, the bad guy, with very mixed results. He went and tried to tell Duryodhana, what you are doing is not right. It is adharma. Dharma is morality, decency. You should do dharma. You're doing adharma, that which is immoral, indecent. And Duryodhana's answer was very profound. His answer was, he says, his answer is something that everybody in human life, everybody, all of us, we can identify with. He says, look, it's not my problem that I'm not doing the good thing, I'm doing something bad. I know what is right and what is wrong. I know that. You don't have to tell me what is right, what is wrong. My problem is the right, what is right, I know it to be right, I don't feel like doing it. My problem is that which is bad, I know it to be bad. It's not good for me or anybody else. But I can't stop myself from doing it. Janami dharmam, janami adharmam. He says, janami adharmam, nachame nivritti. Janami dharmam, nachame pravritti. Kenapi devena hridistitena yatha niyojito asmi tatha karomi. Some power is there within me, he says, which impels me to do this, and I can't resist it. Now, what he is doing in terms of this, he's not taking the choice. At every moment, he's not making the effort to choose. Whatever comes up from within. What comes up from within? Again, the law of karma. Whatever we have programmed ourselves to over many, many lifetimes. If you don't believe in many lives, over one lifetime of habit. Whatever we have put in ourselves, that's what will come out. It's like a computer with a default setting. The moment you switch it on, I don't know if the new computers do that. Earlier computers would say that, should I go to the MS-DOS or something like that? Or default, they'll give you 10 seconds and then it goes on and does whatever it was programmed to do. In those 10 seconds, if you break it, if you break that loading of the programs, and you can do something else. In the same way, whatever is within us keeps coming up. It's a default setting. We do things by habit, we speak by habit, we think by habit. Yet, at every moment, there is a choice. There's a small gap, just like that computer booting up a few seconds. In our case, not even a few seconds, less than a fraction of a second. There is a window of opportunity to exercise free will. There is a gap of consciousness. And this has been confirmed by modern neuroscience. That there is a small gap where the newer brain, the cognitive parts of our brain, can actually take a rational decision, a cool decision. That's why they say you delay. It's a wise saying, that you delay important decisions. And don't act on impulse. So, that act lets our more modern part of our brain, the evolved brain, act. So, neuroscience supports this. In the Gita, when Krishna tries to teach Arjuna, Arjuna says the same thing which Duryodhana said, but with a slight difference. He says that anichannapi vashneya baladiva niyojita. By what force does a person do wrong things? He said, without even wanting to. He has made a resolution to be good, to do good things in life, and yet slips again and again and again. By what force? Now, the difference between Arjuna and Duryodhana is this. Arjuna wants to change. Duryodhana is not interested in changing. Arjuna wants to change and he's looking for the way out. And Krishna tells him, Kama esha krodha esha. There are these powerful forces, anger and lust, desire. These boil up from within because of our past programming. And tayor na vashama gachet tau hi asya paripantino. He says in the Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, do not accept that programming. They are enemies of your path. Enemies standing on your path. Which path? Any path to anything good in life. Your natural programming often is not according to what you want in life. So there, you have to make a choice. The moment they come up, seize that window of opportunity and then substitute it. I'm coming to what you're saying. I haven't forgotten. I'll give you how, now with this background, follow this carefully. We'll see how meditation works and the mantra, how it works. You see, what happens is, the oldest manual of meditation is the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, there's a big Sanskrit and difficult Sanskrit commentary called the Vyasa Bhashya, where there are very nuggets of wonderful insights. In one place, it gives us this, exactly how to do it. He says, the commentary on the Yoga Sutras, all our thoughts come from the subconscious mind. The word for that in Sanskrit is samskaras. The samskaras, we are not aware of that. The subconscious, below the level of our conscious awareness. But they bubble up, they boil up all the time. And when they come to the level of conscious awareness, we call them thoughts, emotions, feelings, desires. I want this, I hate that. Where does it come from? From our samskaras. When it comes up to the conscious level, the Sanskrit term is vritti. Vritti is a simple term. It means any modification in your conscious mind. A thought is a vritti. A memory is a vritti. A desire is a vritti. All of these are vrittis. Even perceptions are vrittis. So any modification, any wave in the lake of your mind is a vritti. When they boil up from within, the samskaras, tendencies, they come up as thoughts, feelings, desires, vrittis. And these vrittis which we entertain in our minds again subside into the lake of the mind and strengthen or weaken existing samskaras. So you have a cycle. If you have a notebook, you make a cycle. At the bottom is samskara, tendencies, accumulated tendencies. And then you draw a circle. At the top of the circle is vritti, conscious thought, emotion, feeling. Any conscious event in your mind is a vritti. So the commentator says, evam vritti samskara chakram aharnisham avartanam. This wheel of vritti and samskara, tendency and conscious thoughts, feelings, emotions, this wheel rotates when? Day and night. It rotates day and night through our lives. Now what do? We have no power over the samskaras directly. We don't even know where they are stored. We can't change them. But here's the secret. We are aware of our vrittis, our feelings, desires which come up in the conscious mind. We are aware of that. Or we would be if we were a little calm and meditative and introspective. We can be aware of that. And when the samskaras come up as vrittis, the tendencies come up as thoughts and emotions and desires, there is a moment, a gap, where they are weak, where they are not strong, they have not been expressed as language and action. The moment we start acting on it, they are very strong. Then it takes tremendous willpower to put the brake. You may put the brake one day, but you will stop putting the brakes the next 2 days. You can resist one cookie, but you will not resist the next 2 cookies. So, before it becomes action, before you have reached for that, when a thought comes up, if the mind is sufficiently calm, you'll be aware of it. At that time, take that conscious decision. I will not think this, I will think that. I will not say this, I will say that. I will not do this, I'll do that. It must start at the level of thought. If you try to stop it at the level of action, it takes too much effort. That's why people fail again and again to follow diets or whatnot, any kind of conscious plan of action. So, the interesting thing is, it gets easier as time goes on. Because remember, whatever we entertain in our conscious mind sinks back into those tendencies. And later on, after quite a while, those are the ones which will keep coming up. Then the programming becomes useful and good, then you don't have to struggle so much. Sri Ramakrishna puts it very beautifully. He says he used to live by a river, and he would see boatmen struggling hard with the big poles to push against the river bottom, to push their little boats out into the midstream. Once they caught the current, they would sit there with their hand on the rudder, and he'd say they would smoke a hubble bubble, and they'll be relaxed. They'll just put their hand on the rudder, and the boat will go along, carried along by the current. Similarly, as we meditate, as we consciously take the decision. When? Not once in a year, not on 31st December. Day to day, at least daily. You take a decision. Keep your decisions up on a whiteboard or something in front of you. I just tell students, it reminds you again and again. I'm taking a decision. Not that time, I'm taking it today. Fail 1,000 times, absolutely no problem. But don't forget to take the decision again. You will find it gets easier. It's not easy at first, but it gets much easier. There's this story of a Zen teacher who the student came to him and said, I'm troubled by bad thoughts when I'm meditating. And the Zen teacher said, what's your thoughts? I do that, but I forget. Well, you do one thing. He gave him a pile of stones, little pebbles. You find in Japanese gardens, white and black. Whenever an undesirable negative thought or emotion comes to your mind while meditating, take a black pebble and put it in the bowl, this little bowl, porcelain bowl next to him. And when a good thought, emotion comes to your mind, take it and take a white pebble and put it there. So the student started meditating like that, and at the end of the first day, it was mostly black pebbles in the bowl. And so it was for days and days and days. Only 1 or 2 white pebbles. But as the months and years went by, there came a time when it was almost completely white. So what happens is, as you take these decisions, as the thoughts go back into your samskaras, good thoughts come up. And it becomes easier. Your programming becomes in alignment with what you want to do in life. So that's what he said, you take a decision. Meditation works in that way. It keeps on consciously putting a thought. The sacred mantra, which many of you we have received, when you repeat that, you see the tendency of the mind is to go jump like a monkey from tree to tree. Monkey climbs up a tree and doesn't climb down a tree. It sees another tree, goes from branch to branch. Gets another branch nearby, leaps to the next tree, leaps to the next tree. And our thinking is like that. You think about a good day, nice day for driving. Driving, you think about the car and you see the car in front, that was a red Ferrari. Red cars are nice, you think. And then my friend had a car like that. I wonder how he got the money for that car. Oh, he's in banking. I should have gone into banking. And then how bad my job is. So you see how it's going from this to this to this. And all the time it's happening. One way the mantra functions, only one very simple way, the deeper ways. But the one way the mantra functions is, it doesn't allow the monkey to jump from tree to tree, the monkey of the mind. It keeps it on the same tree, because you repeat the mantra, mind goes elsewhere, again you repeat the same mantra. Mind goes elsewhere, again you repeat the same mantra. It brings it back again and again. It cuts that kind of monkey-like hopping from tree to tree of the mind. So that's how the mantra works, but of course there is a deeper mystical significance to the mantra. It's not just psychological. Okay. I have more or less covered what I wanted to in the first session, except one thing which I'll carry over to the next session. We have run out of time for the first session? Okay, 1 or 2 questions. Now, your question was that grieving, does it still happen? Yes, if there are powerful thought streams, it will not be easy to give up on, to replace that with positive thoughts immediately. But grief also dies down with time. Otherwise, we could not survive. People could not survive. It will go down with time. If it's a very close and dear one, it will never truly go away. But it will go down with time. The mind repairs itself. And then you can use the positive method. Yes, there's a question.
I think you may have answered my question, but I've had for a very long time. Given that the unconscious mind is probably about many thoughts simultaneously, whereas the conscious mind really can only entertain pretty much one thought.
Exactly.
What is the gate that allows one thing from the subconscious to reach the conscious and not only a myriad of other things?
There are many reasons why certain things come up. One thing could be our environment. You see, our environment throws hooks into our mind. So that's how advertisements work. You see on the screen something nice. There's a person with an iPhone. He's smiling. I want to be happy. He's happy. And he's got an iPhone. Okay, iPhone equals happiness. So the environment is throwing the hook into my mind, and it catches on to things which are there already in the mind and pulls out certain kinds of fish from the lake of the mind. That's one way, from the environment. So the environment is very important. With whom we associate, what sort of things do we see, what sort of things do we hear, what will be summoned, what demons will be summoned out from our subconscious. That's one. The other is there are exceptionally powerful forces in the subconscious that will keep coming up. Certain things we have driven into, for example, in the negative side, addictions and things which are there which have been driven into the subconscious, they keep coming up again and again and again. Same thing works in positive sense. If you have a positive habit of sharing, helping someone, nice patterns of behavior, those will also keep coming up again and again. So what powerful ingrained habits keep coming up? They come to the door first. And also we believe the law of karma. In Hinduism, we believe in the law of karma. Certain karmas are ready to give fruit, give results now. Things will happen from outside, and we see certain feelings and things coming up from inside. So it's time for those things to come on. But that does not mean we do not have the power to decide. We still have the power to decide every moment. Question? Okay? Yes, there's a question there. Yes. The samskaras, the vasanas are particular types of samskaras. The samskaras, vasanas literally mean that which is like a perfume. It might be a good smell or a bad smell, but what the mind stuff is permeated with. And when they become strong tendencies, they become expressed as vasanas in the mind. Samskaras are deep in the mind, they are tendencies. They express themselves as vasanas in the mind. Yes. Viryam karavavahe tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. This prayer, by the way, which I just recited now, it's customary to chant it before studying the Katha Upanishad. Each Veda has its own prayer. So this is from the Yajur Veda. It means we're praying to the Lord to protect us all, the teacher and the taught, by giving us spiritual knowledge, realization that we are Brahman. To nourish us by the results of that knowledge. What will be the results of that knowledge? Remember, the whole project is to overcome suffering and to get true happiness. So getting that would be a proof that we are getting the result of this study. And let this study be invigorating, give us strength to face life, real spiritual strength. And also let it be luminous, that we will read and we grasp and and it becomes a living truth for us. And may there be no disharmony amongst us. So that's the prayer. Om, peace, peace, peace. All right. This session, my main task will be to keep you all awake. Not a problem on my side because I'm speaking. It's much more difficult to be awake when you're sitting and listening passively. So what we will do is, we'll make it more interactive. So I'm going to give short breaks in between where we can talk it out. I'm going to speak about a section. When I've covered one point sufficiently, we'll talk about it. Then we'll go on to the next point. So that's what we're going to do. So we have exercised our power of choice, and we have decided to lead a spiritual life. Well and good, but it's not that easy. Have you ever wondered why it's so difficult to change? All these books, the self-help sections of big bookshops, there are all these shiny new titles every year, And it's a big business, especially self-help books. People keep buying these books. And it's not that these books are not valid. They have got wisdom in them. They have got something that works in them. But why is it that it doesn't make much of a difference to our lives? All of us, we have read books on, most of us at least, on how to be happy, how to overcome anxiety. What was that? How to win friends and influence people. And Stephen Covey, the 7 habits of highly effective people. Many of them were truly wonderful ideas, really. And we understand it. And not only do we understand it, we want to implement it in our own lives and make a change. But then the thing happens is that we really don't change much. Why not? Why is it so difficult? Even after we have made the choice, and we are not like Duryodhana who is not willing to change. We are willing to change. We really want to change our lives. We are open to wisdom. It's from positive psychology or from religion or philosophy, wherever. Now, there is a book about that. Did you know that? Obviously, there is. It's called The Happiness Hypothesis. And it sounded like one of those many titles, new titles on positive psychology. But this is, it was a refreshingly serious work. Professor Jonathan Haidt, I don't know how you pronounce it, Haidt, Haidt. He is a professor here somewhere in the United States, working in the field of positive psychology. He wrote this book, The Happiness Hypothesis, where he raises this question: why do we find it so difficult to change even if we want to? Even when we know how to. We have read the Upanishads, we have read Vedanta, we have read positive psychology and so many self-help books. But why is it so difficult? And the answer he gives is very interesting. He says, when you read something, listen to a lecture, you're convinced of something, that you need to do yoga or meditation or philosophy or whatever. What is convinced? It's our intellect that's convinced. Our intellect is convinced. But we are not just intellect. We are bodies. We are emotions. We are habits. He gives an example, very interesting example, and that's very relevant to what Yama, the Lord of Death, will say next. He says, imagine, this is the Professor Jonathan Haidt, not the Lord of Death. He says, imagine an elephant and its rider, the Mahout. Mahout is the rider of the elephant. And the Mahout decides where to go, and he's got a map, a GPS, he knows where to go. And he has made up his mind. Now he'll be able to go there, he'll be able to take the elephant there only to the extent that the elephant is willing to go there. The elephant is much stronger than the Mahout. So if the elephant listens to the Mahout and obeys the commands, the Mahout will reach. But if the elephant is not interested in going there, the elephant doesn't want to go there, the Mahout is not strong enough to drag the elephant there. Impossible. Exactly the same thing happens, in our case. Just as the Mahout understands the map or the GPS and he knows where to go. The intellect understands. Yoga is good for me. Getting up early and meditating is good for me. Reading spiritual texts and practicing them, it's good for me. But the elephant, the body, it doesn't care. It doesn't understand lectures. It's like that elephant. It's a creature of habit. It doesn't understand lectures, it doesn't understand high philosophy, it doesn't understand Vedanta or positive psychology or Walter Mischel or the marshmallow test, nothing. None of this. Now Jonathan Haidt points out, what does it understand and what can we do about it? Any number of lectures, your intellect is thoroughly convinced, but the body does not respond to that. So I may be thinking that getting up early in the morning and doing yoga is good for me, and I agree, and I understand, and I want to do it, I decide to do it, I resolve to do it. But early in the morning at 5 o'clock when the alarm goes off, then it's not the intellect who is in charge, it's the body, and the body says, hit the snooze button. 10 more minutes. So there was this little cartoon of the Star Wars character Yoda, who's this archetypical wise person, And so he opens his eyes in one picture, and the subtitle said, "The Force Awakens." And then he has a funny way of closing his eyes like this. And then the subtitle below that says, "The Force wants 10 more minutes." So that's what happens. Now, what can we do about this? This understanding has to be there first. That the Mahut may understand, the intellect may understand, but the body or the elephant does not understand. Now Jonathan asks, what does the elephant respond to? In the case of the elephant, what does the elephant respond to? The elephant responds to training. The elephant responds to training. How are elephants trained? They're given a training through incentives, discipline, not by lectures. You can lecture to the elephant day after day, it will not make any difference to the elephant. In the same way, the body responds to training. The body responds to training. Let's just see what the Lord of Death has to say about this. Keep the elephant image of Jonathan Haidt, 21st century, he says this. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, the Lord of Death in the Katha Upanishad speaking to Nachiketa. You want a spiritual life? Nachiketa says, yes, that's what I'm here for. And then he says, consider this. He says, Atmanam rathinam vidhi, shariram rathamevatu, manah pragraham. Yes, buddhim tu sarathim vidhi, manah pragrahamevacha, indriyani hayan ahur, vishayangsteshu gocharan, atmendriya mano yuktam, bhoktityahur manishina. 2 verses. He gives us a model. He says, consider this body to be a chariot. Today he would have said, I think Cadillac or something like that. Not Cadillac. Cadillac is so 1970s. He would have said something like a Prius or something like that, A Tesla. Though most bodies are not Teslas. So, consider the body to be a car, a chariot. And you are the passenger. You, the self. You are the passenger in this body. Okay, I'm the passenger. Who's driving? You are not driving. In the driver's seat is the intellect. Is the buddhi, the intellect. And the steering wheel is the mind, which executes decisions. The steering wheel is the mind. And it works with the chariot example. We have 5 horses. 5 horses are the 5 sense organs. And they run, it's a strange kind of chariot, it runs simultaneously on 5 lanes. So, the lanes are the 5 sense objects. Eyes are the horses, and the forms are the lanes it runs on. Ears are the horses, and it runs on the lane of sound. Ears hear sound. So touch, sparsha, its skin is the organ of touch, and you touch things. And nose smells things, and the tongue tastes things. So taste and touch and smell and forms and sounds, these are the lanes on which our sense organs are running. They are the horses of your chariot. Something like the wheels of a car. Though you'll be in deep trouble if they run on different lanes, but and it's controlled by the wheel, which is the mind, and the wheel is in the hands of the intellect, the knowing faculty, the understanding. And you are the passenger. The self, in conjunction, when it is sitting in the car of this body, it's called the enjoyer or the experiencer. What we find ourselves to be right now is not the pure self in itself. We find ourselves to be embodied selves. You're in a car, basically. And the problem is, we've forgotten what we are, we have taken ourselves to be the car. And now he's giving us a model to understand what's happening in our lives. Consider yourselves to be the consciousness within the body. And there's a guy who's at the wheel of the car. That's your intellect. You are not the intellect. You are the passenger in the back seat. And the mind is the one through which the intellect operates, thinks, decides, choice. And these sense organs are acting in the world outside. The mind controls the sense organs. So it's a basic imagery. But do you see how it corresponds to the elephant and the rider image? It's a more sophisticated model, but it corresponds to the elephant and the rider image. The rider, the mahut of the elephant would be something like the intellect which drives this car, the driver of the car. Okay. And now he says, Yastu avijnanavan bhavati ayuktena manasa sada tasyindriyani avashyani dushtashvaiva sarate. If the driver is drunk, if the wheels are loose, the wheel of your car is not aligned, and the wheels on which the car is running, the horses of your chariot, they tend to run in different directions. They do whatever they like. They are not well trained. The passenger will not reach his destination, to say the least. He'll end up getting a ticket, definitely. So, he says, if the intellect is not well informed, is not knowledgeable, if the mind is not mindful, ayukta, mindful, is not mindful, and the indriyas, the sense organs are not trained, they are willful, they tend to run in their own. Each of them has an autonomous intelligence. Now, Jonathan Haidt also says something very interesting. He says the body has its own autonomous intelligence. It's a low-grade intelligence. It doesn't do math or calculus or do philosophy, but it has a certain amount of understanding. Nowadays, modern medicine is coming to this understanding. Even our gut feeling, we keep talking about gut feeling. They say there are actually bacteria there which influence our moods in our gut. So different centers, wherever there are strong plexuses, concentrations of nerve centers, there is a kind of autonomous low-grade intelligence there. It has certain likes and dislikes. It wants to go one way, which is pleasant for it. So eyes want to see what is pleasant. Skin wants to touch what is nice for it. Tongue definitely wants to taste what is pleasant for it. Evolution, habit, all of these together have programmed these sense organs. Unless we reprogram them, we are in trouble. We will continuously have conflicts. We will read books, listen to lectures, but when it's time to do something, we run up against these horses which are not listening to the charioteer, this vehicle which is not responding to the commands of the driver. The intellect is convinced to, first of all, when we read books and listen to philosophy lectures, think about it, slowly we understand. We get some mature understanding of what life is, what we are and what we are supposed to do, what will make us happy. Then we run into these obstacles. These obstacles are of our own creation. These habits which we have ingrained, patterns of thinking. Mind, he says, if the mind is not mindful, this whole thing about mindfulness meditation. You see, most of the time, we are not in the present. If you see on a movie screen a person walking and there's a banana peel and the person slips and falls, slapstick comedy. It's cruel, but we laugh at it. And then the person falls and we think it's funny, though it's very cruel to do that. But we are doing all of us are doing the same thing. All the time we are slipping on the banana peel of time, slipping off into the future. If what if this happens? Anxieties, expectation, thinking about what will happen next. Or slip back into the past. If only. It's called the if only thinking. If only I'd said that. If only I'd done that. If only. Past. What if? The future. We are slipping on the banana peel of time and slipping off away from the present. Unmindful. So the mind has to be mindful, fixed. Today in the morning I was giving this example of the windshield wiper. So if you do that, the mind is unmindful. Mind has to be focused on the road when you are driving. So in the same way, he says, if the mind is not mindful, if the intellect is not knowledgeable, your GPS is not programmed, His intellect is not knowledgeable. Driver doesn't know where he's going. And the horses are not well trained. This passenger, you the self, you will not reach the goal of overcoming suffering and attainment of bliss. On the other hand, yastu vijnanavan bhavati yuktena manasa sada tasyendriyani vashyani sadashva iva sarathe. But the one whose intellect is well informed, you attended all the Vedanta classes, and mind is concentrated, aware. That's the next thing. Attending Vedanta classes, reading books, hearing lectures. You see, in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, we come across a place where people are talking about Vedanta, discussing Vedanta, and Sri Ramakrishna is sitting on his cot and listening to them. And then he says in Bengali, I'll translate for you. He says in Bengali, "Kothagulo to bhalo, dharana hawa chai." The words are very good. What you're saying is very good, but it must be assimilated. The mind must be able to assimilate it. So, the intellect is fully aware of Vedanta, the mind is concentrated, able to assimilate what you have understood. And you soak in it, marinate in it, so that it becomes part of your life. Swami Vivekananda says, tell yourself again and again that I am that, or I am he, I am that, till it tingles with every drop of your blood. That I am not flesh and blood, I am spirit, till it tingles with every drop of your blood. So that is when the mind becomes focused. And he says, our sense organs are well trained. For that person, he will attain the goal of spiritual life. Here comes the question of spiritual practice. I'll complete this point and then we'll discuss it a little bit. We have a lot of confusion regarding spiritual practice. You see, Vedanta says basically, we are one with the divine, and what is the problem? We do not know it. Not knowing is the problem. Not knowing is equal to ignorance. Not knowing itself means ignorance. And ignorance can only be overcome by knowledge. Ignorance can only be overcome by knowledge. Hence the importance of what is called Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge. So ignorance is overcome by knowledge. What is the path of knowledge? First of all, you study these texts. The very word Upanishad, in the first talk I did not actually give you the meaning of the word Upanishad. I gave you the meaning of the word Vedanta. Vedanta means Upanishad. But what does Upanishad mean? The word itself. It means knowledge. The word itself has 3 parts. Upa, Ni, Sat. Upa means approaching this knowledge. Or literally it means going to a teacher, going to these texts and getting this knowledge. Upa. Ni means deliberating on this knowledge till you get conviction. And Sat is the result of this knowledge. What is the result of this knowledge? I'm giving you Shankaracharya's commentary. He says the result of this knowledge is threefold. One is, number one, it destroys. It destroys what? It destroys ignorance. Knowledge destroys ignorance. We did not know that we are Brahman. Now we will begin to understand, feel, appreciate the fact that we are spirit, not flesh and blood. Second, it takes you to Brahman. What takes you to Brahman literally, what does it mean? How does it take you? The spiritual journey is not a physical journey. You don't have to go on a pilgrimage or something. Takes you to Brahman means we realize that we are Brahman. This gap, that I am a puny human creature, mortal creature, the death, the big problem. This is transcended by the realization that I am not that puny mortal creature. The body will die, but I am immortal. This journey is taking you to Brahman. And the third effect is it loosens the hold that the world has on you. The suffering is because the world has a hold on us. Every little, pinprick makes me feel pain. Every little ache in the body, every insulting word, every little downturn in the fortunes of my day-to-day life, or even the stock market, makes me feel bad. I am at the mercy of everything. Swami Vivekananda put it very harshly. He said, slave to the passions of the body, slave to every little whim, slave to an unkind word. We are enslaved by this world. So it loosens the grasp of this world on us. It frees us from these clutches, this knowledge. So what does this knowledge do? 3 things. It destroys ignorance, takes us to Brahman, meaning we realize we are Brahman, and finally it loosens the grasp of samsara upon us. This is the threefold result. And how do you do that? You come to this knowledge first, upa, coming to the knowledge. Study it, listen to the talk, come to a competent teacher, come to the Vedanta Society and attend retreats on Katha Upanishad. Yes, it's part of it. You may be happy to know that this is part of, we have already started spiritual practice. In the path of knowledge, it's called in Sanskrit Shravana. We generally have a feeling, okay, I've heard the lecture, now let me do it. That's a good idea. But even hearing the lecture, understanding is already doing it. You've already started, so congratulations. You've already gone 1/3 of the way, maybe. And the second thing is, they say manana, to assimilate this truth, to think about it again and again. Apart from studying it and listening to lectures, trying to live up to this truth, to assimilate this truth. And finally, nididhyasana, to meditate upon this truth till it becomes a living reality. 3 stages: study, reflection, meditation. What does study do? It removes our ignorance. We begin to understand that such a thing is possible. Then reflection. What does it do? The doubts will come. When you read all this, then many questions will come. You see, after every class we have a question answer session, so many questions will and should come. If they haven't come, then there's something wrong. Questions should come. Because the Vedanta says we are in ignorance and is trying to take us to a state of knowledge. If we are in ignorance, there's something wrong with our thinking. And when you hit that wrong thinking, questions will arise. I think this way, you are telling me I'm wrong. Tell me why. In each point, I'll ask a question. So these questions, deliberating upon it, at the end of the period of reflection, what do you expect? You expect conviction. At the end of the first period, what do you expect? Period of study? You expect knowledge. Okay, the book tells me this, the Swami tells me this much. But, what's the but there? But I have questions. I have doubts. At the end of the second period of reflection, what happens? The Swami told me this, the books told me this, I had doubts, now we have gone through all of those doubts, I am beginning to get convinced. I understand now, I'm getting it now. That's the end of the second phase. Then what remains after you get it? It's still not a living reality for me. I know what the book says, I now believe it, I'm convinced about it, but it's still not a living reality, it still doesn't help me to overcome suffering and attain bliss. So that comes through the period of meditation upon what you have heard and you're convinced. You can't jump straight to meditation. You say, meditation is the real thing. Let me say, I won't listen to any classes. I'll sit and meditate in the temple. That comes only after you have gone through this process. So this is the path of knowledge. Now a doubt will come. Swami, I have been coming to the Vedanta Society for 30 years. I still am not enlightened. Then Sri Ramakrishna is saying, Katha gulo bhalo, dharana hawa chai. He says, see, these things have to be absorbed. Vedanta says, now the problem is not at the level of the intellect. The problem is at the level of the mind. The mind has to be, as Yama said, samanaska, that means mindful. You need concentration of mind. So through meditation, through worship, upasana, the Sanskrit word is upasana, it develops concentration on a spiritual subject. Focus, concentration. That is the stage, that's where the mind is concentrated. So, Swami, I have taken the sacred mantra and I have been doing the japa and meditation for decades, but mind is still not concentrated. How do you know that? Every spiritual retreat there will be a question. Swami, when I try to meditate, my mind goes here and there, which means the mind is not concentrated. Then why does that happen? The third and final stage, the foundation of all of this, the mind is not concentrated, it goes here and there because of the impurities that we have poured into the mind year after year throughout our lives. So that is called, there we need chitta shuddhi, purification of the mind. Look at the way Yama has said. 3 things he says. One is the sense organs need to be controlled. Second, he says the mind has to be mindful. And third, he says the intellect has to be knowledgeable. You can now match it. The intellect at that level, jnana yoga, the path of knowledge. At the level of the mind, meditation and devotion, bhakti yoga and raja yoga, they will work. And at the level of the action of the sense organs in the world, karma yoga works. Chitta shuddhi. So karma yoga, the path of action, it purifies the mind. With a purified mind, when we try to meditate, we get a concentrated, purified and concentrated mind. With a purified and concentrated mind, when we come to the Upanishads, the Vedanta, the philosophy of the Upanishads, then it works. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Hearing, reflection, and deep meditation on what you have heard and reflected upon. Then comes what is called the direct intuitive knowledge that we are Brahman. Direct knowledge, not just reading about it. We realize it. It becomes a living reality. Unless we do that preliminary part, controlling the sense organs, purifying our mind, number 1. Mindfulness, samanaska, concentrating the mind through bhakti and through meditation practices. Number 2. Unless we do that, this philosophy of the Vedanta, the Upanishads, one Swami told me that unless you have what is called sadhan chatushtay, the preliminary qualifications for Vedanta, unless we have that, what will happen is at the end of all of this, you will feel you have read a particularly clever philosophy. A very interesting philosophy, and you have read something that's very interesting, but it didn't make a difference to your life. That's why after lectures sometimes, as you see students, they're impatient, young people. Swami, I heard what you said. It didn't work. You just like you read it and then you take it out for a spin. It's not like you purchased a car from the showroom. It won't work. You have not got the keys to the car yet. First, you need to clean up house. And then you need to focus the mind. And then with that focused and clean mind, when you come here, it works. Now, do you need to do that first, one by one? No, that's a lifetime's work. Do I need to do lots of good deeds to lots of people for 50 years and then meditate for 20 years and then come to classes for 10 years? It will be too late. You need to do all of it together. That's why Swami Vivekananda recommended the harmony of 4 yogas. Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, and jnana yoga. Raja yoga is meditation. Bhakti yoga is love and devotion to God in whatever form the Guru has taught you. And karma yoga is the path of good works which purifies the mind. I'll stop here. Do you have any questions about, this is the very important part, about spiritual practice and Vedanta. What's the relationship of practice, different kinds of practice, what results do you expect from those kinds of practice, and Vedanta? Yeah, there's a question.
Quick question. So as you were talking about the reading and the reflection and then meditation,
Yes.
3 things are happening, right? So the knowledge comes and destroys ignorance.
Yes.
You get closer to Brahman.
Yes.
And then the external world grasp loosens.
Yes.
So that's very true, and I feel that, right? But as the outcome of that,
Yeah.
don't you think if every person starts doing that, isn't it a bit more selfish from that person's perspective versus helping others?
True, but only 2 things. One is, that person will also be helping others because if he or she needs to practice karma yoga. You see, the fundamental practice at the foundation is karma yoga. What I have said, a 3-tiered practice. You can make notes about it also. You can say problem, practice, result. Problem, impurity of the mind. Practice, karma yoga, the path of good deeds. Result, purification of the mind. Sanskrit, chitta shuddhi. Next level, one step up. Problem, the Sanskrit say vikshepa, scatteredness of the mind. Mind is not, mind is scattered. It's unable to absorb these truths. Practice, meditation and devotion. Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Result, concentration of mind. Focus, mindfulness. Now you have a pure mind and a mindful mind, a concentrated mind. With that, when you go to the third level, problem, ignorance. Practice, Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge. Result, knowledge, enlightenment. Now remember, this kind of classification is entirely from the path of knowledge point of view. They have privileged the path of knowledge above everything else. You see, Jnana Yoga is at the top. Bhakti and devotion and meditation are in the middle, and the path of works is at the bottom. Now this is because this is from the Advaita Vedanta point of view, the path of non-dual Vedanta. This is one way. This is one way of looking at it. But remember, that even in this way, even in the path of knowledge, they cannot dispense with work. You cannot dispense with devotion. You cannot dispense with meditation. They just give it a lower status than knowledge. Knowledge is final. From knowledge alone comes enlightenment. Knowledge itself is enlightenment, and from that comes freedom. But freedom from suffering and attainment of bliss. But all the other practices are maintained. There are some teachers who say only knowledge is required, as if to say you don't need devotion, you don't need to do unselfish work, you don't need to meditate. Well, in that case, it generally doesn't work. Even people who follow it sincerely, they'll end up feeling we have read many books, we have understood many things, but sorrow doesn't go away. Suffering doesn't go away from life. So it's just it remains at a kind of understanding, a kind of intellectual understanding. That very intellectual understanding can be deepened into spiritual realization only when the supporting spiritual practices are present. Yes. So, karma yoga is there. He will not be a selfish person. Not only that, moment one thinks along these lines, that I am not the body and mind. Imagine where selfishness comes in. Selfishness comes in with a deep body idea. I am this little body. If I am this little body, then what Dr. Becker said, the denial of death and the fear of death and our immortality projects, everything for myself, somehow to perpetuate this individual being. Schopenhauer, the great German philosopher, he says, a very interesting person, Arthur Schopenhauer, he says, to desire immortality for the individual is to seek to perpetuate an error, is to eternally perpetuate an error. The individual is an error. We are not separate little beings. There is some background unity to all of us, that spiritual unity. That is what is immortal. This individual is not immortal. We are immortal as that background consciousness or spirit. And that's what we have to realize ourselves as, not as this limited being of flesh and blood. This will die. Even the most spiritual, most person who has attended the largest number of Vedanta classes also will die. You can't help it. The body will die. But the advantage is, when you realize yourself as something not this body and mind, you are free of it. You are free of it. So selfishness usually should not come. If selfishness is coming, there is something wrong with my understanding. Yes, in spiritual life, a certain amount of stepping back is necessary. So you will spend some time in study, in contemplation, in meditation, in solitude. But that makes you a better person. That makes you a better person. Yes. Questions about spiritual practice? There's a question there. Okay. Okay. The feedback is there. I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah.
Can you repeat the problem solution?
Yeah.
outcome?
Make a three tier structure.
Yeah.
So you have a problem. You have a problem. You have a practice, a solution, and a result. 3 columns. At the bottom, at the beginning, the main problem is impurity of the mind. Various kinds of vasanas, samskaras, the default programming which we have got in our minds, because of which that monk was putting black pebbles So that's there. See, if we had a pure mind to begin with, if we were saints to begin with, you wouldn't need all this. You'd go straight to God. And there are such people. Maybe because of past lives. Once in a while you come across a genuinely, wonderfully spiritual person. Because I was in charge, I was charged with training, with teaching young men who had come to become monks. I would see once in a while in every other batch of people, all of us were more or less idealistic young people. But once in a while would come along a person who takes to monastic life like fish to water, like ducks to water. You know? They're just meant for it. It's like born saint or something. Now how does that happen? Because they have cultivated it maybe in past lives. They have got none of their programming clashes with what they're supposed to do in this life. It's wonderful to see. And they may be far junior to me. They were newcomers. But I could see, maybe I know the books, I know the texts, I can teach that. But in spiritual life, they could teach me. Because their habits, their thought processes, their feelings, emotions are all way up there. So that's the first stage, purification. The practice for that is karma yoga. The result of that is purity of mind, chitta shuddhi, where evil passions, negative thought patterns, weaknesses are transcended. We have a new programming in place. Second level, problem, mind is scattered, not concentrated. Practice, meditation and bhakti. Meditation and devotion. Meditation is the practice of learning to focus the mind at one place. Instead of that monkey thinking, jumping around from tree to tree, focus at one place. Hold your focus. And bhakti is, we have the enormous power of love, of desire. Bhakti is just replacing the object of desire. I desire and love the world, take the world away and put God there. I desire and love God. Easier said than done, but there's an enormous power. Desire, the heart, is more powerful than the intellect. We may understand something, but what we will finally do is what we want to do. Wanting and understanding are two different things. So purifying the wanting is not to stop wanting, but to replace the object of wanting. Why should you stop wanting? Wanting, desiring, passion, this is power in life. This is what propels us forward. If that is there, if I've got passion about anything, you will feel alive, moving forward. If you stop it, you will just feel like the fire has gone out of life. So keep that passion alive, but Sri Ramakrishna used to say in Bengali, Mod phiriye, turn the course. The surging river is going there, you turn the surging, you don't have to dry up the river. Don't do that. You have to turn the course of the river. I went to see Hoover Dam. They took me to see the Hoover Dam. There's this river, Colorado River, which used to play havoc in the southern states. In 1920s, the US government, the 7 states got together, they divided the water among themselves and they made this huge dam. It was the biggest dam at that time in 1920s. Now what it did was, it channelized the water. Now that water which was dangerous now became useful. It serves our purpose. Similarly, the stream of life coursing through us is dammed up by and channeled by meditation and devotion. The second stage. What will be the result of that? Concentration of mind, of desires also, on God. And then the final stage. What is the problem? Ignorance. Ignorance about what? Not physics, chemistry or biology or mathematics or something. It's ignorance about our true nature. We do not know who we are. Ignorance. Solution? Any ignorance is removed only by knowledge. What you are ignorant about, you must get knowledge about that. Practice of that knowledge is Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. To study and listen to these truths, to reflect upon it and meditate upon it. Remember, each of them has its own result. I am proceeding in a very systematic way. Each of them has its own result. Study gives us knowledge about these truths. Then we have doubts. Doubts are resolved by reflection. Now we know and we are convinced, but it's not a living reality yet. And that living reality comes from meditation upon it. And the result will be, so problem ignorance, solution knowledge, result is enlightenment, you get knowledge. And remember, keep a mark there. This is entirely the framework of non-dual Vedanta, of the path of knowledge. Because the path of love or the path of meditation will not structure it in this way. In the path of love, you will always put the path of love at the top. How do you get God? By love. So, this is the path of knowledge. But it's interesting to note that even in the path of knowledge, these supporting structures must be meditation and good works, unselfish action, and love of God. There's no contradiction between the search for one's true spiritual self, Brahman, and worshipping God in some way, in whatever religious approach you take. It's extremely helpful. One Swami in the Uttarakhand, he said, I don't know how true it is, but I'll tell you what he said. He said, those who are on the path of devotion, for them, talks like this, on the path of knowledge, it may be actually harmful or hurtful for them, disturbing for them. I love God, I want to worship God and humble myself before God. I am a servant of the Lord. I don't want to say I am the Lord. So it's disturbing. So the talks on jnana, knowledge, may be a little disturbing for those on the path of bhakti. But the Swami said, for those who are on the path of knowledge, more the bhakti, the better. There's no contradiction. Worship God to your heart's content and more than that. The more you do it, the more stronger your jnana will be, your knowledge will be. Cultivate devotion. In fact, knowledge without devotion, without love, is often very shaky. It remains as some kind of not very useful intellectual knowledge. Swami Vivekananda used to say, I'll come to that, Swami Vivekananda used to say about Sri Ramakrishna and himself, he says, I am jnana outside, inside I am all bhakti. And the old man, he used to say about Sri Ramakrishna, old man, he is bhakti outside, inside he is all jnana. Yes.
Would you say that this Upanishad and in general all the Upanishads are in that framework, knowledge framework?
Now this is a big question. All the Upanishads taken together are Vedanta. Because of this question, there is no one Vedanta. There are many Vedantas, depending on how you interpret the Upanishads. The interpretation which is best known and which we follow, the interpretations of Shankaracharya. They are known as Advaita Vedanta. When Shankaracharya takes these Upanishads, Katha Upanishad for example, this book, if you follow these interpretations, you will arrive at non-dual Vedanta, the path of knowledge. But the same Upanishads are taken up by Ramanujacharya, who is the founder of the qualified monism school of Vedanta. He lived 800-900 years ago. I told you, in India everything is very ancient. So 900 years ago he lived, and more than about 1,000 years ago. He lived 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years, right. It's 1,000th year we are celebrating. So 1,000 years ago. And he himself was ancient. Shankaracharya lived to the age of 32. Ramanujacharya lived to the age of 120, by some accounts. He interprets it in the path of love, bhakti. The same Upanishads. It's called Vishishtadvaita Vedanta. Another path of love interpretation is by Madhvacharya, the path of dualism, dualistic Vedanta. And there are many other interpretations also. So depending on which approach you take up, which is correct, that is Sri Ramakrishna's unique contribution. It's not that one is correct or the other is incorrect. Rather, they are all correct. Ultimately, somebody asked Swami Turiyananda, one of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, what was the philosophy of Sri Ramakrishna? In a letter, somebody asks him. And he answers, a long letter, is it non-dualism? Is it the path of knowledge? Is it dualism? Is it devotion? Is it what is the path? What is Sri Ramakrishna's? Because he did all of that. If you see the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, it's full of knowledge and devotion and everything. The answer of Turyananda is very interesting. He says, if you ask me for, in brief, what is Sri Ramakrishna's philosophy, I will say that his philosophy is realize God by any means whatsoever. As soon as you can, by any means whatsoever, realize God. Yes.
You are talking about the Vedanta, which is like we think that is Advaita, but
Yes.
reach to the Vedanta itself looks like you have the Jnana Bhakti Yoga, and if it is Bhakti Yoga, then looks like it's coming to dualism, isn't it?
True. Now remember, when in Jnana Yoga, in the path of knowledge, when you speak about the path of devotion, always as a subsidiary. It helps. Devotion helps, meditation helps, and good works help. All prepare you for the path of knowledge. Right? So it's not dualism. Ultimately it is non-dualism, but when you are starting at a dualistic level, when we worship God, how do we worship God? I know at the core of things, at the heart of reality, what is here, it's there too. At this point, let me read out what Yama says to Nachiketa. Very interesting that you should ask this. He says to Nachiketa, it's in the second chapter, in the first section. Yadeveha tadamutra yadamutra tadanviha mrityu sa mrityumapnoti yahiya iha naneva pashyati. He says, literally what I said to you just now. Is it dualism? God and I are separate? He says to Nachiketa, what is here within you is there too. What is there is here too. And then he says, one who sees the slightest difference between this and that will go from death to death. Mrityu sa mrityum apnoti. He could have just as well said he would go from birth to birth, but he's not a nice guy. Yama. He says, you will go from death to death. You'll be whirled round and round in this eternal cycle of birth and death. Or as he puts it, mrityu sa mrityum apnoti. You will attain death, one death to another death. A cycle of deaths only. For what sin? For the only sin of seeing yourself as different from God. Who sees he says, slightest difference between oneself, one's real self. Not as Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, not as Nachiketa, but as the consciousness indwelling, the passenger in the vehicle called Nachiketa. The pure consciousness within. That is the same as Brahman. So, ultimately we know that. So then why are you bowing down? Why are you offering flowers? Why don't you go and sit up there in the altar? No. The difference is, as embodied, I am this, and the Lord comes in that form. I am worshipping my true nature in that form. You see, you can see how the object is the same. The core idea is the same. The approach may appear to be dualistic. It's really dualistic if you say that, no, ultimately they are two separate things. God is separate, man is separate. If you say that, but Vedanta doesn't say it. At least non-dual Vedanta doesn't say it. It may apparently be different. Shankaracharya worshipped God in so many ways, as Shiva, as the Divine Mother. Some of the most beautiful hymns are there to God, and it seems very dualistic. I am thy child, you are my mother. It seems very dualistic, but it's based on the non-dual idea. The fundamental is a non-dual idea. How does it work? Hanuman, the great devotee of Ramachandra. Once Ramachandra, who was an incarnation of God, asks Hanuman, what do you think of me? And Hanuman says, Deha buddhya daso aham, jiva buddhya twadangshaka, atma buddhya tu tvameva aham iti me nishchitamati. And what do you think of me? What's our relationship? He says, Lord, when I think of myself as a body, Hanuman, I am thy servant, you are the Lord. When I think of myself as an indwelling, the passenger in this vehicle who is associated with the mind and intellect and all, not the pure consciousness, then you are the whole of which I am a part. And when I think of myself as pure consciousness, not body, not Hanuman, the pure consciousness, the witness. You and I are one and the same. Which one is right? Iti me nishchitamati. This is my conviction. All three is my conviction. From the point of view of a limited individual, thou art the Lord, I am thy servant. Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. From the point of view of a transmigrating soul which goes from body to body, birth to birth, you are the entire universe. I am a tiny part of thee. But I am a part of you. I am not separate from you. And as the pure consciousness, the passenger, real passenger in the vehicle, which is separate from the vehicle, the pure consciousness, you and I are the same. This is my conviction. And this was narrated to Sri Ramakrishna, who approved of it. A number of times you will find it in the gospel. Sri Ramakrishna approves of it. 3 levels: dualism, qualified monism, and non-dualism. 3 levels. Beautifully harmonized in the teachings of when Hanuman speaks about it. Now, let's go ahead. I'm coming now to the core of the teaching, which I'm preserving for the last talk. We haven't started yet. This is the ethical, psychological foundation, essential. Without it, nothing works. Now the core teaching comes up, which I will speak about. I'll just mention it here. Upanishad, as I said, means knowledge. It means knowledge. And where does knowledge come from? Any kind of knowledge comes through inquiry, seeking, inquiry. You see, all these Upanishads, they're so diverse, so many things are there. In the Katha Upanishad, you find one thing, in the Kena Upanishad, in the Mundaka, Mandukya, they are all approaching the same truth, but in such diverse ways. Now, questions will come. Are they talking at all about the same thing? They're so different from each other. And then a text was written called the Brahma Sutras. Vyasa, who is a famous person in Indian religion, the one who organized the Vedas and so on. So he wrote these sutras, aphoristic sayings, which answers questions about the Upanishads. So they're called the Brahma Sutras. There are these 555 little texts. They look like fragments of sentences. They're compressed sayings, sutras. And the first of the sutras is Athato Brahma Jigyasa. What does it mean? 3 words. Atha Brahma Jigyasa, which is a compound of 2 words. What does it mean? Now, therefore, an inquiry into Brahman. So beginning of spiritual life, he says, is an inquiry into Brahman. All Upanishads are an inquiry. When do you inquire? When you want knowledge. Why do you want knowledge? You want spirituality. Go and worship God. Why do you want knowledge? Well, because spirituality at its essence means we are ignorant about our true selves. We need knowledge about our true selves. And this knowledge comes from inquiry. So this inquiry will reveal to us what kind of inquiry is it? Primarily, it is an inquiry about ourselves. Who am I? Who are we? That's what Nachiketa was asking when he said, what happens after death? And that's what Yama tells him in these verses. You see, here is the spiritual journey. It's a journey from the... it's an inner journey. Now the vehicle is ready. There's a vehicle, the chariot is there, the charioteer is there, the horses are ready, the reins are in the hands of the charioteer. Remember, chariot, body. The horses, the sense organs. The reins are the mind. And the charioteer is the driver, the intellect. You are apart from it all, still in this body. The consciousness shining upon all of this. Now you're ready for the journey. Where do I go? Nowhere outside. When you go for spiritual life, the first thing that Americans do is look for a visa, take out a passport and go to India or Tibet or something like that. You can put that passport away. It's an inner journey. You don't have to go anywhere. You have to go within. Within what? Within this very system where you have the horses and the chariot and the reins and the intellect. You have to go within. What is this going within? It is shifting the I. Not this I. The vertical I. Me. I. Shifting the reference of the I. What does it mean? When I use a word, bottle. Bottle is a word. What does it refer to? It refers to this. Bottle is a word which refers to this object, right? The word and the object are different. Often we confuse them, the word and the object. Bottle is a word which refers to this object. I is a word. What does it refer to? Straight away it refers to the body. That's what the way we behave. I. When I say I am Indian, it's a nationality of this body, right? I am man. I'm a man. Body, gender belongs to this body. I am a woman. I am a man. I am black or white or brown or yellow, whatever. It refers to the body. That's the I. What else does it refer to? So you will see that the real I, the I right now is referring to the body. And then what happens? The problem, you see, what is the problem with that? The problem is every problem that the body is subject to becomes my problem. If I am the body, the problems of the body are my problems. I am the body after all. I am overweight. I am underweight. I am old. Problems of the body, my problems. I am sick. Body's problems. I am mortal, the fear of death. Body's death. It's like standing in an open sewer and complaining, oh, it's so dirty and smelly. Come out of the sewer. Right? You are not part of that sewer. You can't keep on cleaning the drain all the time. It's a drain. Again, dirty water will come into it. The more you clean it, again it will be a rush of dirty water in it. It's a drain. Body is going to get sick, old and die. It's part of the nature of the body. Not, as Buddha said, it's impermanent. All that is compounded once will come apart at one time. So the I, Vedanta tells us, when you say, I am the body, this is what you are getting, this all these problems. Well, there is a way out. There is a way out because you are wrong. You are not the body. However amazing, however unbelievable this may sound, you are not the body. And Vedanta is going to show you how you are not the body. It's an inner journey, shifting the reference of the I from the body to the spirit. From the changing, aging, diseased, dying body to the immortal, unchanging spirit, which is consciousness, existence, bliss. Changing the reference of the I. You will still say I, but you will mean something quite different from this body. What will be the result of that? Enormous payoff. Enormous payoff. The same Swami Turiyananda, when he was a young boy, he goes to Sri Ramakrishna, who was suffering from cancer of the throat, and very painful. And Turiyananda, Hari, his name was Hari, he asks Sri Ramakrishna, how are you today, sir? And Sri Ramakrishna says, I am weak and I cannot eat, it hurts. And Hari says, but I see that you are in great joy. It would be a cruel thing to say to an ordinary person suffering from cancer. And Sri Ramakrishna, instead of feeling hurt, he bursts into laughter and he says, oh, the rascal has caught me out. Shala dhore niche in Bengali. Oh, the rascal has caught me out. He's found me out. Another time, Sri Ramakrishna himself, there was another person who was cleaning the wound with a neem, with a solution of an herb, an antiseptic, so that he could feed Sri Ramakrishna. And it hurt when he touched the wound. And Sri Ramakrishna gasped in pain. And that person said, he felt hurt. He said, I won't do it then. If it hurts you, I won't do it. And Sri Ramakrishna said, wait. Let me take my mind off from the body. After some time, apparently nothing happened. He said, now you can do it. And that person, Advaita Vedanta, he started doing it and absolutely calm. He has not gone into meditation. He is not in samadhi. He is absolutely aware. That means the pain also must be there. But pain, body is pain. That you see how knowledge works. There are two kinds of insight. One is an insight which you understand that you are apart from this body. Whatever is happening to the body will continue to happen to the body. Old age is happening to the body. It will continue. Disease is there in the body. It will continue. Pain is there in the body. It will continue. And yet, it's not me. No more than the dirty water in the drain affects me when I'm standing outside the drain. I can see that, but it's not me. That's one way. The other way is the yogic way, where you dive deep in the thought of God and you become so absorbed in the thought of God that you actually don't feel it. Both of these you find in Sri Ramakrishna. Sometimes in the Jnani's way, in the path of knowledge, sometimes in the path of deep meditation, where his mind is absorbed in samadhi. Sometimes he passes through the phases, one after another. So changing the reference of the I. I'll just say one more thing, and we have run out of time actually. So let's take a question and we'll stop, and then we will come back for the next, after a little bit refreshment. Yes. One must be clear, what are we going to get into now? We are getting into the core of Yama's teaching, the actual teaching about the spirit. How do you shift the reference of the I? We have covered a long distance. Yes.
So that means from world dependence to God dependence to self-dependency?
You can put it that way. Wonderful way of putting it. In the path of bhakti also the same thing is done.
From God, the God dependence to God dependence is
Yes. Dvaitam to Advaitam. And there you are not pushing God aside. You realize yourself as, it's a deeper understanding of God, of yourself as one with God. Yes. When you say that you are one with God, what a tremendous thing you're saying. We'll take it up in the next session. We'll conclude this session, yes. Thank you very much. I succeeded. I am a good teacher, so I can observe the class, and just about almost everybody was awake. Some were dozing off, I could see that.
Credit to you.
No, not to me, to them too.
Okay, we'll split the credit.
You did keep everyone.
So thank you again. And then we will have a short musical break.